with Coach Spencer Ferrari-Wood. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Appreciate you having me on.
So, Coach Ferrari, he is the head football coach at Monte Vista Christian, which is out near Santa Cruz, California. So, to kick things off, Coach, can you just share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you ultimately got involved in coaching?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a football coach. Like many kids, I grew up wanting to play football for as long as I can, and then I knew that I would want to eventually turn into coaching. So I grew up in the Atlanta, Georgia area, played high school football down there. Had the chance to play some small college football, played junior college in California, but then I played at the 4-year level in Mississippi at Belhaven. Um, and then I had the chance to continue playing abroad, which I didn't really even know was like a thing. But I got the chance to go play in Poland. This is back in 2014. So played a year of pro football out in Poland, which is a cool experience. Um, and I got hurt in the last game and kind of decided to hang it up. And then I went right into coaching. So I coached in Poland, and then I coached in Austria, Germany. Um, Came back, coached a year in college in California, and then was in Belgium for 4 years. And after that, moved to Tennessee, where I was there for a couple years, and now I'm in California. So no one's going to be tested all that information. You don't have to remember all that. It's kind of here and there, but that's kind of my journey, and always wanted to coach, and I'm really just grateful for the sport. Love it.
Yeah. So, tell me more about your playing experience and how that's like helped you in your coaching career.
Um, yeah, you play football for a long time, and then you probably just think that you'll be a good coach just by your knowledge of playing the sport. And then I feel like when I started coaching, I was more just exhausted after practicing games than I ever was as a player, which is funny. You don't expect that. But I was a receiver pretty much my whole life, my whole upbringing. I played quarterback when I was real little, but mainly was receiver growing up. And so I'm definitely an offensive guy for sure. I feel like receiver is kind of my home. So I love just, concepts in the receiver position. But coaching, especially when I became an offensive coordinator, I really had to kind of dive into offensive line play, which realized I knew very little about. Um, and then when you become a head coach, you want to make sure that you know all phases of the game. So I learned a lot about defense. I was a special teams coordinator in college for a year, and I love special teams. So um, you kind of come into coaching a little bit naive because you played, you have your position that you're comfortable with, and you feel like you can kind of own that a little bit. But then you start kind of branching out into being a coordinator, head coach, and you got to know so much more. Um, and so that's what coaching has really allowed me to do is have a kind of broader perspective of the game and learn a lot about different positions and things. And it's endlessly fascinating. I mean, the sport is always evolving. The moment that you think you kind of have it all figured out, things change and there's new things to learn all the time. So always trying to grow and learn, but I was definitely an offensive guy growing up, and I'm still an offensive guy today.
Yeah. And what you kind of said earlier about your playing experience and bringing that to coaching. So one of the guys that I just talked to on this podcast, he actually played at UCF down in Florida, and he was a defensive lineman. And even though like he thought that he was going to kind of seamlessly flow into the offensive line coach role, when he ended up coaching a few years later, but he was just talking about how different it was, but at the same time he was an offensive line GA actually, but just him knowing the other side of it was really, really valuable. And, it kind of sounds like you being an offensive guy, has that helped you like understand like in a way that understand defenses maybe in a way that defensive guys don't necessarily who don't have that same experience?
Yeah, totally. And I remember thinking, talking to our defensive coordinator in different places I've been, like, I know what gives me problems as a coordinator on offense. And I know like the things that are difficult for me to adjust to or whatever, whether it's just like certain pressures or stunts or twists or late movement on the line, whatever it is. Like there's things that a defense does that present a lot of problems for me. as an offensive coordinator. And so it's cool to then go to the defense, if they're maybe not doing those things and be like, hey, I'm telling you, if you do this or this, that really messes with, my head or with the coordinator's head. So yeah, I think having that perspective is helpful. I remember reading an article a couple years ago. I think it was um, Paul Christ era at Wisconsin. And he would like, I think it was in spring ball. There was like a day in spring ball where he has like all his position coaches flip to their other counterpart. So like, the receiver coach will coach the corners for a day, the linebacker coach will coach the running backs for a day, stuff like that. And it was really insightful for those guys to see some things from a different viewpoint, and be like, oh, so that's why your technique is like this, or oh, this is what you're trying to take away. Okay, makes sense now. And so it kind of helps you kind of just be more well-rounded and balanced and see things from a different perspective. So it's yeah, definitely helpful.
Yeah. And then I was just looking on your website a little bit and I saw some of the articles that you've written, and one of them I see is titled Progress is greater than mastery. Um, can you talk about what that concept looks like for you in your current program?
Yeah, well, I think, it's easy to chase perfection. When I was in Europe, I saw this all the time. You have a young quarterback who is new to the sport and he's out there throwing the ball around and he's like, man, and he gets frustrated when he can't throw a ball like, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. And they're like, man, I'm so frustrated. Um, but I think you can earn a lot of confidence by progress and not by seeking mastery because, um, if one single practice is not going to make you an NFL All Pro, but one single practice could improve your spiral a little bit, and that confidence that you get from progress is a really good feeling, and that trickles into a lot of different areas of life too. I think I said in that article too, where it's like, one morning on the stock market isn't probably going to make you a millionaire, but one morning on the stock market might earn you some confidence, and you get some progress as a result of that, and that's a good feeling. So, I'm trying to always incorporate in our guys. We should just stop seeking mastery and perfection. I mean, obviously, we want to chase perfection to be the best we can, but um, there's no limit on better. You can always be better than you were yesterday, 1%. So I think just always trying to have that continuous improvement mindset. I challenge myself to try to be better about that as a coach, and I ask that from my guys and my players. Just try to be better than we were yesterday because that's all we can do. And hopefully we're not as good as we will be tomorrow.
Right. And I talk a lot about this on the podcast, but just the fact that sports is like the perfect microcosm for life. And I recently had a guy that I went to Gettysburg with. He's the CEO of actually a pretty big company now, and he's only like 25 years old. He played basketball there. So he was just telling me about how sports and his all the philosophies and values that were instilled in him have helped him build a large company. And it's just it's really great to see that kind of thing because, like, especially at the high school level, that's what these kids need is they need to be taught how to learn a skill, because 9 out of 10 of those guys aren't going to go on to play in college or even pro. um but every single one of them, they're going to need to get a job. So just learning that process is what is valuable, and it sounds like from your article that's what you're trying to instill in your guys, which is great to see.
Yeah, well, it's easier said than done, but there's a lot of carryover. I mean, I just think football is just the greatest sport ever for not a lot of reasons. I mean, I think sports are obviously all great. I played basketball and stuff growing up too. I love sports, but football is very unique. And I feel like football taught me what these things like hard work and discipline, toughness are. Hard work isn't when, your strength coach comes and yells at you in your face to do one more rep and you do one more rep. It's, what are you doing when he turns and walks the other way and is not looking? What are you doing then? So there's things like that that I learned concretely as a result of playing football. And as you said, those are the things that I want, my kids here to learn as a result of playing the game too, and have a good experience with it, and be better as a byproduct of it.
Yeah, definitely. So how many years have you been coaching now?
Coaching, gosh, this is probably um, coming up on 10 years.
So if you had to go back to yourself like 10 years ago, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, man, I would sit him down and share a lot of things. I would say 10 years ago, what would I tell myself as a young coach? Uh, I would say one thing is to read more, just in general. I think as a human, I hated reading growing up. I never wanted to read. I never read books at all, and kind of got into reading after college. And I realized that reading, there's like free information out there everywhere. If you can just pick up a good book, and there's so much that I've learned as a result of reading good books. And that translates to football too. I mean, you can go to the seminars and listen to the right things and go to the right clinics and all these things, but I think books are a really good way to learn. So I would tell myself to read more for sure. Um, but I would always tell myself, I think, to go back to 10 years ago to believe in yourself and trust in yourself. I know it's a very cliche, corny thing to say, but one thing I struggled with a lot as a player growing up was self-doubt. Um, I was never like tripped out by like spiders or snakes or anything, but the fear of failure really got to me. I didn't want to fail. And as a kind of an undersized, slot receiver guy, if I have fear of failure, and I'm going up against a guy in press coverage who's just bigger and stronger than me, then I already have lost. I don't have a chance. But if you're confident, now you have some wiggle room, to succeed. So I would say just believing in yourself and not having self-doubt can really be a game changer for someone like me that grew up very introverted and maybe dealt with some self-doubt. So that's what I would share with myself, among many things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've also brought this up on the podcast too, but one concept that you might have actually heard about, but one guy that I follow, his name's Alex Hormozy. He talks about stacking confidence, and it's not about shouting affirmations in a mirror. It's about doing little things every single day and looking back at that and saying, okay, maybe I'm not Aaron Rodgers right now, but I'm putting in the work every single day. So, I'm consistent. And then from there, you can start to realize I'm consistent, and then that confidence just continues to grow once you start to do other things. So, that's always, and I'm a little bit younger than you, but if I had to go back to when I just graduated college 2 years ago, that's something I would tell myself too. And I think that applies for anybody.
Yeah, that's all we can do is stack good days on top of each other. I think you'll be surprised where you land when you stack a bunch of good days on top. And one thing I learned too from a guy that may be similar to the guy you referenced, James Clear. He has a book, Atomic Habits, and he talks about stacking habits, days of good habits. And his thing that I remember from his book, he says, it's okay to miss, but never miss twice. So if you miss a tackle, go make the next one. Don't let it just like spiral out of control. If you're late for a meeting, be on time to the next one. If you miss this or that, go ahead and make the next one. So missing is a part of life, but a pattern of misses that kind of starts to spiral towards bad behavior. So I think stacking good days is a really good kind of tool to use because you want to stack good days on top of each other. But even if you miss a day and you have kind of a bad day, don't let that spiral. Just go and get back on track and just never miss twice. So, yeah, I love the concept of stacking good things because it's easier said than done, but it's powerful.
Definitely. So, well, coach, thank you very much for sharing. And any last words you wanted to share with the audience tonight?
This is mainly football people listen to this, right?
Yeah, football, really all sports, but yeah, mostly football.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just say, football, I guess this relates for all sports. I happened to meet Herm Edwards about a week ago. I never met Herm before. He was actually at our school because his daughter plays volleyball for a school and art league. And I was talking to Herm Edwards, and I never met Herm before. And uh, I remember I've told myself this for years. I've never met anyone who loves football as much as me. but I've never met John Gruden and I never met Herm Edwards. And I met Herm Edwards the other day, so that was cool. And I told him that. But one thing he shared, this is kind of in a well-known video now, but we talked about it, was he was talking about the power of the huddle in football. Football is unique because oftentimes you have guys, I experienced this in junior college for sure. You look around in the huddle and you have guys with different backgrounds and ethnicities and socioeconomic statuses, guys that drive this kind of car, don't have a car, guys that live in this kind of house or don't have a house, guys that fall on all sorts of the political spectrum, um, different religions, all kinds of stuff. But that trust is still there, that if your left guard and your center have disagreements about something in their personal lives, like they still got to double that nose and work together and find a way. Um, so football is just like you said earlier, man. It's a microcosm of life. There's times when you don't have to like somebody, but you got to collaborate and you got to find a way to get it done. And football has really taught me that. When you move on from football and you get into the real world and you get a job, you're going to be on a project with somebody who you don't see eye to eye with, and you got to find a way to collaborate and get it done. And football is a great demonstration of that all the time. And hopefully you have a team where your guys love one another and you fight for one another and you hang out with one another. But oftentimes there's the guys that you maybe wouldn't hang out with if you don't play football on the same team. But you got to find a way to lean on them and trust them and get it done. And so I'm just thankful for football and what it's given me and taught me, and that's one of many things. But I think about football all the time, man. The huddle, it's a unique thing, and trust is at the centerpiece of it, no matter what else. And I learned that from Herm Edwards, and it's a great thing, and I'm sure that relates to a lot of sports too.
Definitely. No, it's a great thing to bring up. So, well, it was great talking with you, Coach. Thank you very much, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Justin. Thanks for having me on.